Okay, so you're about to see a video that'll introduce you to what social media is from a professional perspective. If you're not sure what to do, open up two browser windows side by side, one that has the note catcher, one that has this video. Follow along and take some notes. We've given you some notes to follow along. When you're done, if you don't have all the answers, scrub along this so you understand what's about because you're going to be asked to do some assignments. We're going to analyze some social media according to these rules. So pay attention, learn how this works, learn what these things are, and we're going to start getting you ready to become social media marketers. Hi there. So, we're going to talk in this presentation about social media, what it is, the positives, the negatives. I know what social media is, but I need you to kind of stay in with me and understand how it is from a professional standpoint, the kind of things we're going to talk about in this class. And I want you to pull out that note taker and open it up in a separate window. So, keep this video in one window and the note taker in the other, and you'll be able to fill out the note taker as you follow along. So, social media it facilitates the sharing of ideas and information through a bunch of virtual networks. Covers a whole bunch of different kinds of apps and online and builds communities. So that's what we're working on for starts. So, first of all, what is social media? Well, it's digital technology. It's got a huge user base. About 60% of the world's population uses it. It's about sharing ideas and thoughts through virtual networks and virtual communities. So, what are the most used social media sites? Maybe not the ones that you're on, actually. The chat and messaging apps, and that's kind of combines everything WhatsApp, Meta Messenger, all of those. That's 94.8% of users since 2023. And social platforms, and that covers all of the different social platforms, that's 94.6% of it. And then there are some search engine sites that have become quite socialized because they're sharing reviews and stuff, and that's 81.8% users access those platforms. Now, some of the key takeaways from this article are that user growth has only gone up a little bit since 2022 because everybody's already there. The largest platforms are Facebook, YouTube, WhatsApp, Instagram, and WeChat, and they're the top of the list. Now, social media, they use personalized profiles and engagement. In other words, everything about social media is user generated. That's the thing to remember about social media. In terms of history, the social media platforms, they grew really quickly. In 2004, between 2000 and 2004, you had MySpace pretty much dominating the market. It was the first one to have 1 million users. That's amazing to think about in a country of 300 million. It was kind of an edgy thing back then. And then in 2004, Facebook entered. A young kid named Mark Zuckerberg dropped out of college. He created this. It became popular, and he left college and went into business doing it. And then the other one is Twitter. Those two entered in 2004, and everything exploded from that point. Now, at this point, you pretty much can't run a business unless you're going to do some advertising in social media. Now, here's some interesting stats. One is that daily usage, it's about 2.24 or 2.25 hours on social networks in 2020. So that averages people your age against people my age. So if you're thinking about that, you're realizing that sometimes kids are spending 6 and 8 hours into these platforms. The other piece of that 46% of internet users get their news through social media platforms, which means roughly half the audience is getting their media from social media. They're getting their news from social media. That changes things like the election. And there's a huge generational difference because Gen Z and millennials, in other words, young students like you, are most likely to get your news from social media. So we know the regular, typical social media that we're used to, these Facebooks, the Instagrams, the Snapchats of the world. We're accustomed to those. But there's some others that you have to realize are also considered social media, like video game platforms, because that really does cater to the communities of gamers. Video sharing sites, that's an obvious YouTube, but most people don't realize that places like YouTube and Vimeo are social media sites because they're fully socialized. Professional networks, you've probably heard of something called LinkedIn. Well, if your audience is for people who are in the professional world, you wouldn't want to do as much on Facebook as you would on LinkedIn. And then virtual worlds; these are kind of immersial environments that create social interaction, like Extra Life. These things become things that people can get into that are other forms of social media. Now, here's where this connects to your course right now. Why would businesses want to get involved in social media in the first place, right? Well, first of all, that's where your customers are. And they're trying to interact with the customers in an informal way. It's also about market research. If you find out what people like in social media and they're real like, then you know what products to bring to the market. And you can go in there with sales promotion to sell your stuff. And then there are also a lot of groups, a lot of businesses that have been very successful by having user groups online, and they've done a lot of direct customer support, how to use their product, creative ways to use their product, new market lines, all come out through a customer support community inside of groups that exist in these social media platforms. So, if you're wondering why social media benefits businesses, you can really fine tune your marketing. So, all your marketing dollars, which is a high risk way to spend money because you don't know if anybody's going to respond to your ad, well, you can really listen to people and get to know to them and speak the language they want to hear. You can have really targeted promotions, so you can bring your products and your services exactly to the people who need it, and don't waste your money on the people who don't need it, and really to build relationships. So, if people get to feel comfortable with your company, like it's a friend or a family member, then you're going to have customers who are going to stick around for years. Those are all really good reasons to get deeply involved with social media. Now, there are big problems inside the social media world, and we've seen that big time, right? The first and the biggest is disinformation. A lot of times people are just putting information out there because there's no filters. And it's complete freedom of speech, but that's also freedom to say things that aren't true. There's a lot of polarization, and we've seen that really come about in the last few years, where people who disagree can't disagree civilly. They really just get after each other, and it becomes very divisive. And who really wants to spend all their time going in on drama? Some people do, but if you want to stay happy, it's not always a great way to live your life around negativity. And there's some serious psychological effects that happen because people who are kind of doom scrolling, and the algorithms tend to keep you listening to the things that you like and watching the things that you agree with. And consequently, there's some deep psychological effects because you don't have to critically think. So there's a lot of drawbacks inside of social media. However, and I really want to make this clear, there are also a lot of positive impacts. You, for example, stay connected. That connectivity, it allows people to access information in real time and build community. We're all wired to be connected to one another, even if you're an introverted person. And that's fine if you are. At some point, you do want to communicate with other human beings. I don't. There's a difference between being introverted and not necessarily being charged up by people, and living in a cave. And so, communities, virtual communities, can really help us connect to the people we trust and like and get to know, who have our shared interests. Diverse networks too, because a lot of times you will make friends that you couldn't connect with otherwise. And 80% of teenagers, particularly the teenage market, feels more connected through to peers through social media. They'll actually sit in rooms and text with each other. So you got to realize that the connectivity of it is really important to people. So, is it popular to do this? Absolutely. Facebook and the Meta is what it's called. They've really made it easy to get online, and over 200 million small businesses. These are businesses that employ fewer than 100 people. For 200 million of them are online doing this, including a lot of one-person startups. 90% of marketers use Facebook for promotion. It's really easy to get in there. And that's just the Meta and the Facebook data. That doesn't include Snapchat, YouTube, all these other Google-based ones too, and ad spending. Mostly advertising, 55% of global ad spending is going into social media. So social media is selling product and selling businesses and services. So are people on social media platforms? Here's some cool stats. There's 2.96 million, 3 million people on Facebook. Now, let me give you an idea of this. There's 8.2 billion people in the world. 3 billion of them are on Facebook. That's big. 8.2 billion people in the world, 2.5 billion of them are on YouTube. Put those two together. Now, of course, there's a lot of crossover. I'm sure a lot of people who are on Facebook are also on YouTube, so you can't add them up. But you're talking about the fact that quarter to half the world is using it actively. That's impressive. And of course, this is a part two of this, and I just wanted you to see how far down they went. Snapchat, which is very popular amongst the teenage crowd, or it was for a long time, is 635 million. TikTok, which is far more popular than Snapchat right now, 1.05, meaning 1.05 billion. That's becoming quite big when you think about the age demographic of that platform, that you're talking about 12.5% of the world being on that platform. It's a pretty extraordinary number. And what are people doing on social media? They're keeping in touch, they're networking. There are a lot of people who find careers and jobs on social media, and that's important. And of course, they share thoughts. It's human nature to want to share your thoughts and to get feedback on those thoughts. So people are doing all four of these in the social media sphere. So now when you're talking about the types of social media sites, and there are 6, so stay with me. I'm gonna give you the first 4 here. The first is networking. Social networking is exactly what you think it is. It's just Facebook. It's people just connecting with one another. When you get to something called social news, that's people connecting with each other and sharing opinions, but the social news is much more like Reddit. Bookmarking is more like what you see going on in Pinterest, where you're bringing in other things that you found in the web and kind of putting these curated threads and lists up. Media sharing is when you're putting up your own media. That's much more what you see in something like Instagram or YouTube. So two more that are really popular. Microblogging, of course, is huge. Microblogging, best known as Twitter right now, that's X, and of course, Threads is coming on strong, which is Meta's answer to X. And so, microblogging is where people are putting up short 1, 2 line pieces, not getting into huge discussions. Online forums, you're going to see longer discussions going on. Those might be Discord servers. Those might, in fact, be blogs and websites where people are on there talking, and you'll see all of that. Those are not as popular as some of the others, but they're still in use quite a bit by millions and millions of people. So now this last piece is super important, and that's to understand what we mean when we say social media marketing. It isn't just let's go do ads. In fact, it's about using social networks as a sales and marketing tool. It's beyond advertising. You're going to build this online presence. It's going to be a thing that people talk about, who you are, what your brand is. It's much bigger than just being able to run an ad. And it's also something that has democratized the web. An awful lot of the work that gets done, a lot of the work that I do in my side hustle is helping small businesses build their brand by engaging with people completely on their own. Sometimes businesses of 1 or 2 people, and everybody who does business with that business works with the owner and knows the owner personally. And that just gives people a much better sense of community compared to dealing with some big corporate nameless entity. So, what are the impacts of social media? The first is that you get a global reach. You're talking about 4.7 billion users worldwide. That's 60% of the world. The more you do in social media, you're opening your audience up to 4.7 billion people. It also creates connections. You'd be amazed the number of people I've met online where I just kind of got to know them a little bit. Next thing you know, I'm doing their website or we're doing business together, and it's been very positive. It does provide promotional tools for businesses without having to become a big colossal entity to enter the workplace, and you could actually start to make the living that you dreamed of doing things you love by just building your community online. So what do I think the future of social media is? I can't be sure, but I can tell you that new apps are going to continue to join the established networks. As long as I've been in there, there's been something new. Threads is coming on like crazy right now, just to date this video a little bit, and Threads wasn't even here a couple years back. Changes user behaviors too. Right now, we're seeing an awful lot of divisiveness. A lot of the politics has really infused every age group. Does that stay? I don't know. I don't think it does. I think people will grow and change. And then the technology advancements too. The algorithms certainly keep us all in our echo chambers. If you like something, if you believe a certain way, that's usually what you're going to see and who you're going to be introduced to. But I think as things grow, AI, virtual reality, augmented reality are going to change people's experiences online. So strap in whatever you have now, learn it as well as you can, but don't be surprised when in 6 months and 6 weeks it changes dramatically. So hopefully you've been completing your note catcher as you went along, but if you didn't, go back and complete your note catcher. If you don't remember an answer to a question, just scrub back and forth in this video or go back and check the article if you can't find the answer here. That's all you really need to get this done. Best of luck to you. Thanks for watching.